Hidden across Ontario are railways that built towns, run locomotives older than your grandpa, and survived government shutdown attempts. Unless you live next to one, you've probably never heard of. Number 1. Essex Terminal Railway. Essex Terminal Railway, or ETR, is a terminal railway running from Windsor to Amherstburg owned by Essex Mortem Holdings. It was founded in 1902 as a connection from Grand Trunk to factories in the east of Windsor, and started building that same year, finishing in 1918. During the Second World War, its trains hauled military equipment from Ford Windsor and other industries to CPR and CN. The railway sold several kilometers of track to developers in 1998, allowing homes to be built along the rail line. In 2002, to celebrate its 100th birthday, ETR No. 9, an 060 switcher steam locomotive, was brought down from St. Thomas after restoration. It was on several 1930s CPR and CN passenger cars and gave rise to citizens of Windsor who celebrated the railway's 100th anniversary. A week later, a major derailment happened involving a soybean car due to incredibly heavy rain. ETR serves 9 customers, shipping grains, fuels, salt, lumber, steel, and alcohol, and uses 4 EMD diesel locomotives, a GP9, an SW1500, an SW9, and an SW14. It also runs LDSX 4620, a GP9R. Ojibwe Yard is used as a central location for switching operations and car storage, with other smaller storage yards located in both West and East Windsor. The ETR livery features green and yellow, 7 out of 10 livery. ETR No. 9 is currently operated on Number 2. Waterloo Central Railway. The Waterloo Central Railway, or WCR, is a non-profit heritage railway run by Solars, the Southern Ontario Locomotive Restoration Society. It runs on the Waterloo Spur from St. Jacobs to Elmira. Solars became a registered Canadian charity in the 80s and basically exists to restore and operate old locomotives and share them with the public. In 2007, it gained permission to run trains on the former CN Spur from Waterloo to Elmira, owned by the region of Waterloo. Before then, the Waterloo-St. Jacobs Railway ran the spur. Solars briefly operated the line in 2003 during a provincial-wide steam tour. Regular operations began with the diesel-hauled market day trains between Waterloo, St. Jacobs Market, and St. Jacobs Village. ETR No. 9 was also moved from St. Thomas to Waterloo, with most of the Solars equipment. Santa Claus trains also began that year. Annual excursions to service the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival were added the next year. A restoration and service job in St. Jacobs allowed for the reactivation of the restoration program. During this period, Solars also brought equipment to St. Jacobs, including a restored CN caboose, a CN Burrow crane, and steam locomotive 124. The final train to leave from Waterloo left in 2014 to make way for the Ion Light Rail project, which launched 5 years later, which for Ontario Transit projects is right on schedule. The St. Jacobs Farmers Market Station became the main departure point for all future market train departures. The railway has no standardized livery. Being a heritage railway, it has the livery of old CN and CPR, with the Waterloo Central name replacing the former owner's name. 10 out of 10 liveries. Nothing beats a vintage Canadian paint scheme. Number 3. Ontario Northland. The Ontario Northland Railway, or ONR, is a Crown agency run by the Ontario Northland Transit Commission. It runs a north-south main line from North Bay to Moosonee, basically at James Bay. It handles freight and passenger trains. In the early 1900s, Ontario wanted a rail line to the undeveloped north. No private company wanted to build there, so Ontario government stepped in. In 1902, the railway was created as the Timiskaming and Northern Ontario Railway. They started building the next year, starting at North Bay. The line reached Cochrane in 1909 and later Moosonee in 1932. As it passed Long Lake, railway workers found silver. This sparked the largest silver rush in Ontario history. The town of Cobalt grew out of the fortunes and genuinely wouldn't exist without the railway. The railway rebranded to Ontario Northland in 1946 as the railway dieselized, with the first diesels being Montreal Locomotive Works switchers, road units, and later EMD GP38-2s. The Northlander began in 1976 with Trans-Europe Express train sets built for service in Europe. They didn't last long. Northern weather destroyed them, and they were replaced by FP7 locomotives. The government began winding down ONR in 2012, ending the Northlander service that year, which was a terrible decision. Divestment plans ended in 2014 and O&R remained in public hands. The Northlander service will return soon in 2026 with Siemens locomotives and passenger cars, which have had issues elsewhere in cold climates. There will be 16 stops between Union Station and Cochrane. The railway has an iconic blue and yellow livery, which I adore, as well as a logo featuring 3 stylized ends, reminiscent of lightning bolts. You can also see this livery on the Ontario Northland Motor Coach service. 8 out of 10 livery. Great work, Ontario Northland. Number 4. Ontario Southland Railway. The Ontario Southland Railway, or OSR, is a privately owned freight company that got its start in 1992 to buy 27 kilometers of CPR track between Tillsonburg and Ingersoll, which CPR didn't think was profitable. Their fleet is mostly second-hand CPR, CN, and Via Rail locomotives. They're one of the very few railways still using F units in service, operating 2 FP9 arms, which were built in the late 50s. They also operate locomotives going as far back as the 40s, which automatically makes OSR absolutely legendary. In 2009, it bought 51 kilometers of track between St. Thomas and Woodstock. OSR began leasing 28 kilometer CN Cayuga subdivision from St. Thomas to Delhi, which was leased by the St. Thomas and Eastern Railway until 2013. St. Thomas, aka Railway City, was once the railway capital of Canada. It hosted numerous railways and became a vital junction. When rail transport declined in the 50s and 60s, the city lost that title. The only railway operating in St. Thomas today is OSR. The railway serves 18 customers, including grain elevators, auto warehousing, and a wood products manufacturer. OSR's livery features a maroon-red body with an off-white line in the middle, with the railway's name written on the side. It looks a lot like the vintage CPR red and gray livery. I really like the OSR livery. 9 out of 10 livery, especially if you're an old CPR fan. Absolutely amazing, although I cannot say the same for number 5, Goderich-Exeter Railway. The Goderich-Exeter Railway, or GEXR, is a freight short line running from Goderich to Stratford. There's also a spur line running from Clinton to Centralia. It's owned by Genesee in Wyoming, a freight short lines company that owns basically everyone at this point. GXR was created in 1992 by Railtex, a Texan-based freight short lines holding company to run CN Goderich and CN Exeter subdivisions, which CN didn't want anymore. Like many short lines, the railway bounced from Railtex to Rail America to Genesee in Wyoming. In 1998, the Guelph subdivision was taken from CN until 2018, when CN took control of the Guelph subdivision back. Metrolinx assumed ownership of the sub from Georgetown to Kitchener. Today, GXR moves about 25,000 carloads a year, hauling things like automobile parts, salt, fertilizer, and grain products. The railway runs 13 locomotives, its first 4 being named after Shakespearean characters Titania, Paulina, Portia, and Falstaff, because Goderich is home to the Canadian Shakespearean Festival. It only uses EMD locomotives, being DP-38s, GP-35s, GP-40s, and SD-40-2s to name a few. Its livery is unfortunately the ugly Genesee and Wyoming livery, which is orange with 2 black stripes and the corporate logo. 0 out of 10 livery. Genesee and Wyoming, I'm not mad, alright? I'm just disappointed. Since 2020, GEXR has operated number 6. Guelph Junction Railway. The Guelph Junction Railway, or GJR, is a short line railway owned by the city of Guelph. It's one of the very few municipally owned railways in Canada. The railway provides customers with access to the 2 major railways, CN and CPR. The Grand Trunk had been the only way of transporting freight from Guelph since 1856, but the rates were so genuinely high that the merchants made their own railway in 1884. The plan was to build tracks from Guelph to the CPR main line in Campbellville. Plans expanded when the railway was allowed to build a further line northwest of Guelph, originally with the intention of going to Goderich but ending at Linwood. The railway opened in 1888. Rather than operate the link themselves, they leased it to the CPR, who offered daily passenger service and freight service. The CPR built a passenger station and freight shed at Priority Square in Guelph, which is now the River Run Center. The railway was allowed to build branch lines from Linwood through Stratford to St. Mary's and Clinton, and from Linwood to Listowel. The Stratford branch was never built, while the Listowel branch opened in 1908. In 1910, the city of Guelph acquired the rest of the stock from the merchants for sole ownership. The Listowel branch line closed in 1938, while the main line from northern Guelph to Linwood closed in 1988. In 1997, the Canadian Pacific Railway did not renew the lease with GJR. The city decided it would continue GJR with OSR to provide the freight movement services. From 2008 to 2011, a 4.5-hour passenger tour service traveled the entire track called the Guelph Junction Express, with its own 1950 stainless steel cars. The service was owned by a private company called Destiny Tours International. After the OSR's lease expired in 2020, the Goderich-Exeter Railway ran GJR and continues today. Since GJR is operated by GEXR, it shares the same 0 out of 10 livery. So that's a quick tour of some of Ontario's small railways. I mainly just made this video because I've been interested in Ontario short lines. If I missed anything or made a mistake, please let me know in the comments below. If this video gets 100 likes, I release part 2. So like and subscribe, and remember to hit the bell icon so you don't miss it. In the meantime, I'll just be another rail fan of Ontario.